Hello friends, my name is Keetna and today we'll be dealing with sodium. So sodium is a very simple topic and this is I'm sure where you all are familiar with sodium. This is such a widely and commonly seen element and this sodium is part of the electrolyte and water balance in our biochemistry. So coming to the contents, we have today we'll see about the major functions of sodium in our body, the important values associated with sodium, and clinical conditions like edema, hypernatremia, and hyponatremia. So the major functions of sodium is that it maintains water balance in our body. It regulates ECF volume, that is electrocellular fluid volume, that is the fluid outside the cell, that is ECF. So it regulates the ECF volume, and it regulates the ECF volume by by major cation of ECF. That is, sodium is the major cation of ECF, and that is how it regulates ECF. And it is also present as sodium pumps throughout our body in cells, and it is also it acts as a sodium bicarbonate pump. That is, sodium bicarbonate regulates acid bias balance in our body. That is, sodium bicarbonate is a base, so it will neutralize acid, and that's how it maintains the acid base balance throughout our body. Then coming to sodium and kidney, so this is a very unique relation associated with sodium and kidney, because with kidney's function, sodium is quintessential. That is, sodium is very essential for any function of the kidney, and especially excretion of water, because uh, that is how the kidney functions are regulated. So coming to the actual function and the nature of their association, in general, sodium is conserved inside, and potassium is excreted. So sodium excretion is regulated at the distal tubules, and that is, usually it is conserved, but in distal tubules sodium is excreted. And also coming to the factors that associate that regulate this is aldosterone. It will increase the sodium reabsorption in the distal tubules, and ADH, that is antidiuretic hormone, increases sodium reabsorption in the tubules. And this is a very interesting mechanism, because wherever sodium goes, water will follow, and that is how, by increasing sodium reabsorption, the antidiuretic hormone, that is the hormone against diuresis, excessive loss of water, make sure that excessive loss of water does not happen. So different mechanisms involved with sodium and kidney is that sodium hydrogen exchanger located in the proximal convoluted tubule and ascending limb, and sodium chloride cotransporter in distal convoluted tubule and ascending limb, and the sodium potassium exchanger in distal tubule. I'm not going to detail about each mechanism, because you will deal with it in later chapters. Coming to the important values, so with sodium there are various values associated in our body. So the total body sodium is 4000 milliequivalents, whereas normal level of sodium ions in a plasma is 136 to 145 milliequivalents per liter, and normal level of sodium ions in cells is 12 milliequivalents per liter, and RDA, that is recommended dietary allowance of sodium intake for a normal adult, is 2300 mg, whereas a normal diet contains 5 to 10 grams. So as you can see, it is almost double or even more than the recommended dietary allowance that we take daily. So it is a wise thing to always reduce our sodium intake. And if the sodium intake is high, it'll lead to different conditions that we'll see later. And now this is what the relationship that I've mentioned earlier. This is a relationship between sodium and water. So I'm sure everyone is familiar with Dora and Boots. Dora and Boots are very good friends, and wherever Dora goes, Boots follows, and vice versa. So that is the exact same relationship between sodium and water. Wherever water goes, sodium will follow, and wherever sodium goes, water will follow. This is what was happening in the ADH that I discussed earlier. And this is just a this is just a clue for you to remember. Coming to edema, edema is basically fluid retention in the body. So many old people will have swollen feet like this when they're standing for a long time or when they're traveling for a long time, and this is basically just pooling of water in your extremities. This is not indicative of anything serious, but it could be like congestive heart failure and whatnot. This is basically just pooling of blood or water in your extremities. And I'll tell you how sodium is associated with edema. As we discussed earlier, anywhere sodium goes, water will follow, and similarly. So, if sodium retention can lead to water retention, or water retention will lead to hyponatremia. And this is the exact causes that lead to edema. So we have diuretics usage, that is diuretics is a class of drugs, and while using diuretics edema might happen, and congestive cardiac failure will lead to edema, whereas congestive cardiac failure will lead to increased amount of secretion of aldosterone, that is secondary hyperaldosteronism. So the secondary hyperaldosteronism will in turn lead to edema, and this is a vicious cycle that keeps happening. That is congestive cardiac failure leading to this, and this leading to this, and so on. So that was edema. And now coming to hyponatremia. Hyponatremia, again we'll see it in two topics: symptoms and causes. I encourage everyone to study any clinical conditions with this kind of flow chart, that is symptoms, causes, and if there is a treatment, or what is the enzyme deficiency that is present, etc. If you break every single clinical topic like this, it will be easy for you to remember in the future. So coming to hyponatremia, the symptoms are dry mucous membrane, fever, thirst, and restlessness. The causes are Cushing's disease, prolonged cortisone therapy, and in pregnancy, when there is steroid therapy, it can lead to hyponatremia and dehydration. Exchange transfusion with stored blood. That is, when you transfuse blood that is being stored for longer than 7 days, it can lead to hyponatremia. And so one important point to note here is hyponatremia is caused by dehydration, whereas the dehydration is a symptom of hyponatremia. So hyponatremia is decreased levels of sodium in blood, and with hyponatremia, the symptoms can be dehydration, drop in BP, that is blood pressure, lethargy, confusion, tremors, and coma. And treatment is simply water restriction, because if there is excessive water, then sodium will be excreted. And then we have increased salt intake. This is quite logical. So when there is a low level of sodium in your blood, increased salt intake will help it. And then there is drugs like furosemide and anti-ADH drugs that will lead to that will lead to betterment of the condition of hyponatremia. And then we have causes of hyponatremia, which is vomiting, diarrhea, Addison's disease, chronic renal failure, renal tubular acidosis, congestive cardiac failure, hyperglycemia, and ketoacidosis. So if you see here, congestive cardiac failure was also associated with edema. That is, if congestive cardiac failure is there, edema will be happening, and it is also associated with hyponatremia. And one more thing to remember here is hyponatremia is a more dangerous condition compared to hyponatremia, because if hyponatremia is present, then the hypotonic fluids are formed. That is, inside cells, if hypotonic fluids are present, it lead to more fluid entering the cell. That is, if more fluid enters the cell, it might even lead to bursting of the cell. So hyponatremia is a serious condition that has to be monitored. And thank you for your patience. This is a very simple topic. I hope you all understood this. And ending this with a small message: eat less salt. As I mentioned earlier, we are already taking a lot of excessive salt in our diet. So try to avoid fast food or junk food or processed foods that is containing a lot of salt. So thank you. Please post in your comments if you have any doubts. Thank you.